Welcome to episode 50 of the POD cast, Proof of Delivery, brought to you by efRouting. Top hauls of the week, 10/24 to 10/30, pre-Halloween edition. Got Milwaukee, Wisconsin, heading over to Muncie, Indiana. You can make anywhere up to 406 for 332 miles for a nice fat check. LA to Chandler, Arizona, 415 miles, up to $4 a mile, dry van. And your best reefer routes are Lafayette, Indiana, all the way to Philly, 727 miles, can get up to $4 a mile. Get your girlfriend to be quite happy if you come home with that kind of cash. Milwaukee, Wisconsin to Findlay, Ohio, 376 miles, nice short regional run, up to 5.25 a mile. Best flatbed routes in the south, Tupelo, Mississippi, out to Dallas, 500 miles, up to 350 a mile. And Warren, Ohio, to Philly, your typical run, 400 miles, make 1,600 on that bad boy. Thank you, efRouting. And today we're going to be joined by Mr. Hunter Long, from the CEO of Eider Logistics.
Since Lev is going to mess up the intro, we will continue the best loop for dry vans coming out of Minneapolis, going over to Allentown, going down to Baltimore, back to Allentown, and back to Minneapolis. Anywhere between 5.3 to 9,000. So definitely some big gaps in the potential gross. So be careful when you're booking out there. As far as best loop for reefer is going to be a Chicago to Baltimore, over to Milwaukee, back to Dayton, and again back to Chicago. Again, a massive gap in the gross you can make. I guess there's definitely some hot loads coming out later in the day. 5.3 to up to $9,000 again. RPM, I mean, if you're around 3.7 on a reefer, that's very, very good RPM. Going over to the best loop for flatbeds is going to start in Akron, going over to Charlotte, going to Athens, Birmingham, and a constant theme of ending up back in the origin city at the end. 3.7 to 7.3 on flatbed. Not sure what's going on with these gaps, but let's hop into today's show with Hunter Long, the CEO of Eider Logistics. What's going on, man?
Hey, Alex, how you doing?
Good, man. Good. I want to get into, how did you get into logistics? What was your start in this industry?
Yeah, I mean, well, first, this is my first time doing a podcast, first time doing any live show, so I appreciate you throwing me on here, but definitely looking forward to it.
And yeah, I mean, let's do the quick backstory since it's your first podcast. I want to ease you into it for anybody that's going to watch this back or watching it currently. Hunter made a post something along the lines of, let's spread positivity in our community, to which I replied, why don't you come on the podcast and spread some positivity? And here we are today.
Yeah, sure. Why not? But yeah, how I got into logistics, growing up, I certainly didn't say that I wanted to be a broker growing up. Didn't really know much about logistics, and you really don't have an appreciation of the supply chain and at its depth. So, but I've always been somebody with an
any kid in the world ever says at like 6 years old, I'm going to be a freight broker when I grow up. Like we went over this on the last podcast. I think only being a truck driver, that's like the only supply chain job that people actually really know about, because you see them, and sometimes maybe your parent was a truck driver. Smokey and the Bandit was a movie you watched growing up. But we don't exactly have a freight broker or like dispatcher movie to idolize. So
hey,
most people just kind of end up in it. So how did you end up in it?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, before I got into logistics, I was actually working more of like I guess it was a file management job. I was working with medical documentation with employers, helping employees get back to work. And really, one of my buddies just reached out to me. He was having a lot of success in the industries, and he reached out to me, said, "Hey, I think you'd be really good at this job. Why don't you come job shadow?" So I got to go in, see kind of behind the scenes what brokers do on a day-to-day basis, and I mean just the atmosphere, the culture, how people interact with each other in the day-to-day. I probably talked his head off, asking a ton of questions.
Were you shocked or were you excited by the energy in this brokerage office? Because it either goes one of two ways. People are either absolutely shocked at how the business operates, or they're absolutely enamored and they love it.
Oh, I mean it. I guess a little bit of both. I'm more of an introverted person, but just coming into like job shadowing that kind of environment when before I was, it was the job I was at before. It was very corporate. You come in, do your 9 to 5, sit at your desk. There a lot of people working from home, kind of more of a vibe, and to go into an environment like that to where everything's so extroverted,
like the least corporate possible office job probably in the world.
Yeah, so that it was definitely a new environment for me, but it was one that I fell in love with pretty quickly. Being entrepreneurially focused and seeing the ability to essentially build your own business from scratch, and they give you all the resources that you can to build your own business, and you have all your friends working with you. And you meet people that you wouldn't have been able to meet with prior. And it's just a great experience and a great industry, no matter what side you're getting into.
Yeah, it definitely sets people up for a fast track to being their own boss, or at least being their own agency. This is definitely a business where you can come in, work a year or two, as long as you put in a lot of extra work. There's people, that have been in the industry 3-4 years that sat at their carrier sales job or dispatch job and didn't really have an ambition to grow more, so they didn't learn as fast. But it's very easy to come into this business if you want to learn very quickly. 1-2 years, you can definitely get a lot of experience under your belt if you put in the effort.
Yeah, and that's one thing I liked about it. It really is a job where you create your own paycheck. Like for me, when I came in, I was working 12 hours a day. My goal was to be the first person in the office. I was one of the last to leave, and I always wanted to be at the top of the leaderboards, whatever category it was. And I started seeing that reflected on the paycheck too. And it definitely is an industry and a job that I fell in love with very quickly.
Yeah, the sky's the limit in logistics. If you want to be here, if you're happy to be here, like you said, the paycheck is really whatever you want to make of it if you're committed to it. So take us through your journey. What was your first position in logistics? Were you calling customers? Were you just booking some trucks? What were you handling at the start?
Yeah, so I started out on the broker side, and the thing I liked about the first brokerage that I worked with, they allowed you to handle a big part of the operation. So I had control on the companies that I was calling on, who I was calling, how I was doing my prospecting, as well as the control of the side of being able to quote my own stuff, being able to choose the drivers, things like that. So it really it was a good setup for somebody coming in with no experience. That way I could see the full, both from the operations side and the sales side.
Okay, so you basically came in cradle to grave. You were calling customers, you got your own freight, you started booking your own trucks. You did it all.
Yep.
Okay. How long did it take you to get your first customer? That's always a fun question.
I think it was probably about it was a few weeks. I know within 3 months I was eligible for management, and I think I got officially promoted to manager after 4 months. But I think it was about it was a few weeks when I landed that first shipment.
Okay. Do you remember what your first shipment was?
When it was?
No, what it was.
Oh, what it was? It was a rail shipment. Drayage.
Yeah. Okay. So what led you into Eider, and what is it, if you could explain it,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. First where I first worked, they did a great job with, somebody coming in that has zero experience, being able to come in, having a cradle to grave operation to where I can learn very quickly all the different aspects of it. I had a great support staff, I was really set up for success to hit the ground running. So that was a big part of it. But as I got into management and started building my team, building my book of business, it was probably about a year and a half in, I had a very strong team, very strong customer base. And, I felt very confident about, myself, both as a broker and as a leader. and, started looking at some of the other avenues on ways that I could break off and, start my own business from scratch, as opposed to having, the W-2 pathway that I was previously in. And so, really, it was just the entrepreneurial mindset, wanting to do it on my own shoulders, as opposed to having that W-2 or that salary attached.
Yeah, once you start seeing some success, that's the hardest part with being, a W-2, being a broker, is building your book. And obviously, once you get on your feet, once you have freight rolling in, then obviously your next step would say, hey, maybe I can do this on my own, or maybe, but that's the thing. You have to be willing to do the things that are going to happen to you if you go out on your own, right? Because once you leave that W-2 side, you're going to have a lot more responsibility, a lot more being alone, a lot less support. So how did you kind of deal with that when you broke off? Did you have, what was your starting team, the head count of your starting team at Eider?
Yeah, so I have, it's me and my partner, Gabe Milliken. So first, we're both very, we work extremely well together. My strengths and my weaknesses pair very well with his strengths and weaknesses. There's things that he does very well that I'm not good at, and there's things that I do very well that he's not good at. And so, us being able to collaborate off each other, bounce ideas off each other, I'd say my support staff is very strong with Gabe, and how we're able to drive each other, push each other to, do more each day. So that definitely helped, still being able to be a part of a team. But outside of that, most brokerages, that they're going to have like KPIs in place, different things to, make sure that employees are, doing X, Y, and Z. When you're on the agent path, you don't really have that. You're on your own. You have to hold yourself accountable. And, I don't need KPIs to make sure I'm doing my job. And I knew that was one driving force on, breaking off and doing it on my own is, I don't need a number to make sure that I'm being efficient and effective on a daily basis. So,
yeah, I've heard
really
some.
just holding myself accountable.
I kind of stepped into recruiting for brokers and drivers fairly recently. I heard a funny horror story where this agent, I guess he wasn't an agent at the time, but he was told he's not allowed to move any freight if it's below, I can't remember the number, but it was like some pretty high margin. So he was literally told, you're not allowed to move this freight for, let's say, 11% margin. If it's under a certain number, he just wasn't allowed to move it at all. And I kind of thought that was funny because any money is money, right? Like, it just seems like a weird KPI to measure things by, and it just seems like you're kind of throwing money away. So it definitely would make sense to step into your own thing, to step into being an agent and being able to have the freedom to move the freight that you want to move and move on the opportunities that come across your desk.
Absolutely.
What would you say your biggest strength was in getting customers? Because most people's story doesn't start with, after about 3 months, I had a full book of business.
Yeah, I think for me, I guess it just comes down to even before me being in logistics, any job I've ever had, I'm kind of perfectionist, and it's something that I had to balance coming into an industry like logistics, to where, if you're a perfectionist in logistics, you're going to take your hits on a daily basis.
Yeah, because things are just going to happen that are fully out of your control. And you can damage control them, you can try to fix them, but you got to make peace with the fact that you can't solve everything, because things are going to happen that aren't your fault,
Yeah, absolutely. And so, whatever it be, down to emails, whether I'm sending an email, making a cold call, or, running freight, onboarding a customer, me being a perfectionist, I look at the preparation as one of the most important things, and minimizing the risk and things like that involved with, anytime you're a customer's trusting you with their freight, I hold it very highly for me to minimize risk, make sure that I'm thinking about everything, being very detail oriented in my approach at every level. And I think whenever you're looking at that, both on, me setting up the carrier for success and making sure they have all the resources and the information they need to do their job, but also the customer has all their information as well to where they're appropriately communicated and everything.
You said the golden thing that I think most people skip is the research, right? Like, you weren't just cold calling, cold emailing people, rapid fire style. You were doing some research. You were going into these calls with some information in your back pocket. So valuing research is definitely a strength that people should do. Were you more of a cold caller or a cold email kind of guy?
Well, when I first came in, it was probably more emails, but I mean, here lately, it's honestly been neither. I'll still make calls, I'll send emails, but with the current market we're in, I like to think outside of the box. So, I mean, things like sending letters, shaking hands, giving out business cards, networking. Eider Logistics has seen far more movement and traction on accounts with onboarding new customers, making new relationships with. I mean, getting face-to-face people as opposed to sitting behind a computer screen.
Yeah, I mean, our operation, my boss said, going to conferences and seeing people in real life has been the biggest catalyst for growth for us in 2024. So I think people are kind of sleeping on it because there's like this counterculture, right? Where a lot of people are like, oh, every conference is a huge waste of money. Traveling is a waste of money. Seeing people in real life is a waste of money. But I think it's the same kind of thing like cold calling and cold emailing, right? Like both are viable options. Meeting people in real life is a viable option. If it doesn't work for you, I mean, that's, just don't spend the money. But just because something doesn't work for you doesn't mean it doesn't work in general, right?
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, there are some people who have built great books of business with cold calling, with email. So I mean, it just adds to the depth of logistics. No matter what side, if you're a broker, whatever mode you're running, I mean, there's different ways to land businesses. It's just being creative and doing what you need to do to land the account and build the relationship.
Yeah. So take us through the Eider process and what do you guys handle? What type of freight are you mostly moving? What do you specialize in? Just kind of take us through the freight you guys move.
Yeah. So, I mean, right now we can do everything, but what I like to focus on is when I first came into logistics, I was running Drayage. And so that's our bread and butter. Really, probably 90% of the moves that we're doing right now are Drayage. Well, we have some FTL customers, but it really, our bread and butter is Drayage. That's what I love. It's complex, fast pace. There's a lot of variables involved. It just makes it more fun, right?
I mean, take us through in simple terms, what type of drayage you guys handle, what drayage is, just in case somebody watches this and doesn't know. I've done a lot of episodes on drayage, but some people still aren't. I mean, there's people in the industry that are going to watch this that only move full truckload of dry van freight. So, I mean, if you want to take us through what type of drayage you guys move, just the kind of
absolutely.
details of the shipments.
I mean, yeah, when I first started, I remember, leading up to my interview, I was asking my buddy, I think I probably asked him 10 times what drayage was. So it's an interesting
it's
concept,
like the least known form of transportation. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in a nutshell, I guess the best way to describe it would be it's like the short transportation of the cargo out of the ports or through the port system. I mean, for me, we're running a lot of exports right now. I personally like exports because it's a lot of moving pieces. Dates are moving left and right. You got to arrange appointments, things like that with the warehouse, and there's a lot of communication involved between warehouse, shippers, steamship line, ports, and I mean, you got to be on top of it to run those as efficiently as the standard that we set at Eider Logistics. But we have customers in every time zone. So we're running a lot of West Coast stuff, running stuff through the Port of Houston, have a few East Coast customers as well. A few of them here in the state of Georgia. And then also just now onboarding one customer and another customer in California too.
Okay. So you guys, like you said, 90% drayage is your guys' operation.
Yep.
Okay. What do you guys like? What are some core values, Eider? Are you guys trying to expand? Like, what does the next 12 months, 3 years look like for you guys?
Yeah. I mean, right now, the growth we've seen this year, I mean, it's been a hell of a lot of fun. The biggest core value we have, it really hasn't strayed from the path that made me successful at my last job. It's being operationally focused, detailed preparation, being prepared for, every opportunity when it comes. That operational focus is something that, we've really put into the foundation of Eider Logistics. And so, As we look through to 2025, right now it's a 2-man operation, but next year we're setting our goals of we want an office space. We want to make hires. There's multiple different accounts that we're coming in or we're about to close. And so, now we're ready to take that next step and start getting us an actual office space, adding employees, and really start to build this team up.
Yeah, to scale it up. I mean, people might ask, what would you say to the people that, might say, hey, maybe this guy didn't have too much experience before he went out on his own? I mean, what gave you really the strength to leave your job and start something on your own that early into your career?
Yeah, absolutely. I understand the risk involved to the decision I made. And for me, I'm very confident in, both myself with logistics, but I also acknowledge that I have a lot to learn in this industry. And, and I'm always the first one where I love to ask questions. If whether it be me shaking hands with, as many carriers as I possibly can, even if it's a truck driver at a gas station, if I see them, I'm going to shake hands, I'm going to ask questions. Same with business owners. I'm really heavy into networking, picking people's brains, just being a sponge in the industry. And so, for that, if anyone had questions about my experience, we're very operationally focused. We run a smooth operation. I'm making sure that, whether you're working with Eider Logistics on the carrier side or the customer side, we hold ourselves to a very high standard to make sure that any carrier, the carrier being the thing that's going to be what reflects Eider Logistics, right? If we partner with a carrier who does a bad job, it's going to reflect poorly on us.
Yeah, in turn, you guys did a bad job. Exactly.
Absolutely.
So, you guys definitely hold the carriers to a high standard. You guys definitely value your carrier. Do you guys use a lot of the same carriers, or how does your carrier network look?
Yeah. So really my philosophy, and I guess this dates back to, it's find good carriers and kind of view myself as a sales rep for the carrier in a way. So I guess things that we look for in our carriers and, things that we pride ourselves on: communication, transparency, and competitive pricing. And then obviously the service involved on the back end. So when we're looking at carriers, if I find a carrier that's transparent, communicates well, and has competitive pricing, there's no reason as a good broker I shouldn't be able to go sell my services and their services. So, for example, there's a carrier that I worked with in Savannah when I first started working with him. He had one truck, and, by the end of it, he had scaled up to 7 trucks, and he would call me whenever he's looking at buying another truck. And, I guess I'd give him the green light or tell him to hold off either way, but finding good carriers and helping them grow.
No, I think you really hit the nail on the head by saying, you are a sales rep for the carrier. And I think a lot of brokers and brokerages don't look at it that way, where they just kind of see like, hey, I'm servicing my customer. The carrier is just a means to make that happen. When, like you said, if you find a really solid carrier, it's cool to just go to customers and be like, hey, I have this person or these people. They do good business. What do you have in their area? Let me help, get them specifically some more freight. Because that's how, where the magic happens, right? You find people that are going to treat you well and represent you well, and then you go out and sell for them. That's really a good approach for how a broker should treat carriers.
Yeah, and I think looking at the market, the market's always going to be volatile. It's going to have its ups and downs, and there's nothing you can do to control that. But whenever you build that relationship, whether it be on the customer side or the carrier side, those relationships are the things that are going to be able to withstand bad markets, things like that. And so when we're in a bad market, if you've got strong carrier relationships, you're going to be able to be, you're not going to see any hiccups. But, even in the good markets where maybe capacity's tighter and carriers, the relationships that you earned on the down market are going to show in that time.
I mean, I think I read on the freight brokerage Reddit, man, like years ago when I got into this industry, a story that's just been stuck in my head for forever. Because I got into the industry a little before the 2021 boom, and then obviously once that happened, you knew how the rates were back then. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the rates were insane. And I remember reading this story where this guy's dad owned a brokerage like years and years and years ago. And whenever the market would do market things and it would swing heavily into the carrier's favor, the dad
Yeah.
would rather send his like carriers that he's been doing business with for decades. He would just deadhead them like 500-600 miles from Washington down to Cali to run like a local run because
Mhm.
they would give him a fair rate even with that deadhead rather than the carriers that are like really transactional and just beating him over the
Yeah.
head. And that story's just always stuck in my head because if you treat people well, you know, they're going to treat you well. And that's just always going to be how it is. And there's always going to be opportunists. There's always going to be transactional business in any industry. And I really think that, making those relationships and treating people fairly in the good and the bad markets is how it should be.
Absolutely. Yep.
But okay, some closing words on Eider. I mean, what do you want to say about you guys? What's the next 6 months look like for you guys? Are you trying to hire anybody? What are you guys looking for in terms of freight and customers?
Yeah. I mean, right now we're customer wise, we're focused on providing the same elite level service that we, provide now. New customers, we have, I know there's a few opportunities that both me and Gabe are working on that we're getting close to closing to, take that next step even further. But, as far as growth goes, I mean, we're looking at, whether it be hiring, whether it be getting an office space, these are all conversations that we're having for 2025. And we're ready to take that next step. It's just a matter of doing the preparation. That way, whenever the opportunity opens up, we can take it.
Yeah, just so you don't scale and lose quality along the way. It's always better to have your foundation strong. And I'm looking forward to talk to you sometime in 2025, man. Let's call it summer of 2025. We'll revisit this.
Absolutely.
What is your craziest logistics story or stories?
Yeah. I definitely think it's funny. When somebody works in logistics, when they have a crazy logistics story, because I feel like everyone at least has one.
Oh yeah, like I mean, I had one like my first week, man. Like
Oh yeah.
in logistics. I mean, but it could also be like one of those things where you can work for like 5 years and nothing that crazy will ever happen to you. It's like dealer's choice in logistics.
Yeah. I mean, you're kind of at the mercy of the day sometimes, but yeah. As far as my craziest logistics story, it's it was probably about a couple of years ago at this point, but we had a batch of containers coming through the port of Charleston, and our driver pulled the container. They were delivering to the warehouse and everything, and the truck, I guess there was traffic involved. When they stopped, the person behind them rear-ended them, and there was actually a bad fatality at the scene. I mean, it was very sad, but it ended up.
Had a fatality by hitting the back of the truck, obviously.
Exactly. Yeah. Sadly, something you hear about a lot. But it ended up getting a lot crazier than that because, with there being the fatality on the scene, police got involved. We weren't able to complete the delivery at that time because whenever the police got involved, they confiscated the container, and they had to sit on the police the yard at the police station while the investigation went through. We weren't able to.
Yeah, that's crazy. I actually never thought about that. That's actually insane. Like,
yeah, we could not deliver we couldn't finish the delivery. We were keeping the customer updated. The customer was
I mean, what are you gonna say to the customer? The police basically stole the shipment at that point.
Yeah, I mean, we updated them every step of the way. They were getting a little upset, and all we could do is provide the clear communication. But it was a crazy time because I was having to communicate with the drivers, the customer, the warehouse, the steamship line,
the police.
Yeah, the police station, because the steamship line, they're starting to calculate per diem and stuff like that, and I'm having to do everything. When it comes to preventing charges and things like that, I'm thinking ahead of the per diem that the steamship line's going to think that they're entitled to, and So I'm saving emails, keeping screenshots, things like that. That way, whenever they hit us with the per diem bill, I'll have everything I need to do to fight, any charges or anything that they're trying to send to the customer. But I mean, basically how it ended up was, the steamship line was saying they needed the police report. I wasn't getting any updates from the police station just because, I mean, it was a very delayed process. I mean, with the loss of life involved, it definitely slowed things down. But eventually we were able to get the green light from the police station to transload the product. And so, we had that whole process set up and everything. And, right before we went into the transload, they actually finished the investigation, and we were able to go ahead and finish the delivery and everything. But I mean, it was a chaotic event.
I mean, how long did that take from start to finish, from the day it happened to the day the shipment was finally delivered?
Oh, I still have nightmares of it. I mean, it was a few weeks, at least, because
that's the worst, because that's just going to occupy every single moment of your life. Like you can't get away from that situation. It's like when you have a truck breakdown as a carrier, right? Like the broker or the customer is just going to be on top of you every hour of every day until it's solved. But like, this is much worse because this is a police report. This is a fatality. This is like, you already knew, like, for the next couple of weeks, like, this will become your life. Like,
oh yeah. Even when I left for the day, I couldn't even sleep without popping up in my nightmares.
You're like staring at the ceiling every night, like, oh, this is going to be right where I left it tomorrow morning. But okay, that is actually a pretty ridiculous story. I'm glad that it worked out, I guess, in the end. And I mean, I don't know. What can you say about that? I want to get through some quick questions with you, and then we're going to hand it over to Lev for rapid fire. So as far as hobbies go, when you're not brokering freight, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I have a wife I've been married to for 7 years now. I have a 4-year-old daughter. She's just now getting into soccer, so her soccer season just ended. So being able to take her to practices and games was a blast. This was the first time she played any sports. But as far as for me, it's spending time with family, and I love to watch basketball. I love to watch football. I love to play basketball whenever I get a chance. Just hanging out with friends and family.
I always ask everybody that mentions basketball. So, like, are you tall, or you just enjoy the sport? Like,
I just enjoy the sport. I'm probably about 5'9", 5'10" on a good day. So, I'm not towering over anybody, but I love to watch the sport and love to play it.
Oh no, I'm sure. I mean, I'm like 6'5". I'm sure you'd still beat me. I suck at basketball. I started playing it when I came to Serbia, just because that's like our best sport, basically. And I'm terrible, but I like to ask people that question, because a lot of people that love basketball aren't very tall. Like, it's just like a meme, So okay, spending time with family, playing some sports. I mean, the next question is, do you like sports, and if so, what teams? So what are your sports?
I guess I gotta jump ahead that one. I mean, I love watching football. I'm a huge Georgia fan. Go Dogs. Big Titans fan. I mean, 1-6 now, but I mean, we're probably gonna be 1-7 after this week, But big Pistons fan.
High hopes you've set for your teams, man.
Yeah, I mean, at least I got Georgia. That's about all I can say. All my pro teams do a lot more losing than winning. So, but yeah, love watching football and basketball.
Football and basketball, and music. This is one that I mean, I don't know. If I had to guess, I would just say like general country music.
Yeah, I'm really not too big of a music person. I listen to podcasts a lot more than I do listen to music. But if I do, it's sometimes I listen to country.
Let's shout out your podcast then. What are your favorite? What are you listening to mostly? I mean, what podcasts do you follow religiously?
It's a lot of sports podcasts. I don't think many people have heard it, but there's a Locked On podcast network. It's a couple different. They follow different sports teams and stuff like that. So I like watching the sports podcasts.
You're just a big sports guy. So I mean, Alex Woods is saying you got to pick like an English soccer league. You know, the Premier League for soccer, like the English league.
I don't know any
of them.
Are you
familiar at all with? Oh, okay. So you're not familiar at all with any of those teams. All right. Well, your daughter's playing soccer, so your homework is to go pick a Premier League. That's the best league in soccer, if you ask me. It's like the most it's the only league really in all of soccer where any team could probably win. I mean, like there are some bad teams, but that's the league with the most like good teams. Because some
I'd
leagues
say-
are just 2 teams and it's not fun at all to watch.
I think right now my favorite team would probably have to be my daughter's team. So it's about the only one I know of.
Fair answer. All right, moving on from the personal stuff, I got a question. Actually, you're a perfect guy to ask this since you're in this type of stuff. Regarding train and rail transportation, how many chuggas come before choo-choo?
I'm gonna say 8.
Well, while you're thinking about that, I have to just tell Alex that that's not no, bro, like no Liverpool. Anything except for Manchester United. That's like my only team that I love. But 8 is the correct answer. So I mean, you being involved in this type of freight, getting the question right doesn't really surprise me. I guess you have an advantage. And my final question before we hop into rapid fire is going to be chicken wing choices. So when you eat chicken wings, do you prefer drums or flats?
I'm gonna go flats.
Wrong answer. Ranch or blue cheese for the dipping
Can't win them all. Ranch or blue cheese? I'm gonna go neither. I really don't like. There's not really any dips or condiments that I like.
I mean, you have to pick one. If you had to pick one, I mean, you could say neither. That's fine too. But if you really did have to pick one, which one would you prefer?
I guess it would like like if it's like a spicy ranch. There's been some like spicy sauces that I can
You're
like.
a spicy guy, eh?
Yeah. So I mean, if I had to choose one,
I didn't see that you being a spicy kind of guy coming. I don't know why. I don't know. It's like a surprise. You like really enjoy spice or just casually enjoy spicy food?
Well, I have family that lives in New Orleans, so I guess I got the Cajun blood in me.
Yeah, so you're like really about the spicy food thing. All right, and as far as breaded or non-breaded on the chicken wings, which one are you going with?
Breaded.
All right. Well, I mean, you got 1 out of 3. The middle one is kind of a wash since you don't have a preference. So you're 1 out of 2. That's 50%. We'll call it like that.
Can't win them all.
All right, man. It's been lots of fun. I will see you at the end of Lev's rapid fire segment. It's a quiz show type style thing. So have fun with that.
Cool. Appreciate it, Alex.
Hey, Hunter, thanks for joining us this Wednesday afternoon. Are you ready to play rapid fire?
As ready as I will be.
Excellent. We're going to play 2 games. First one's called either or. Give you 2 choices. You're going to have 5 seconds to respond. The point of both these games is to get to know you from a little bit of a different side and get to know Eider logistics a little bit as well. So are you ready?
Yep, let's go.
But before we do, what are you going to be for Halloween?
Well, I know my daughter, she's going to be it's like a fairy princess outfit that we got her. And then, my wife and I are going to pick up masks here shortly. So I'll probably pick up some kind of clown mask or something.
Okay. Clown mask. If Eider Logistics was to have a mascot, what would it be?
A duck.
Excellent. All right. And here we go. Carrier or broker?
Carrier.
Dry van or reefer?
Dry van.
Flatbed or intermodal?
Intermodal.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Produce or scrap metal?
Scrap metal.
Instagram or LinkedIn?
LinkedIn.
Bezos or Musk?
Musk.
Fox News or CNN?
Fox News.
Coca-Cola or Pepsi?
Coca-Cola.
This is going to be a tough one for you as a Pistons fan. Isaiah Thomas or Dennis Rodman?
Isaiah Thomas.
Are you a hunter or a farmer?
Farmer.
Imports or exports?
Exports.
Work from home or work from the office? Ideally.
Work from the office.
Whiskey or tequila?
Tequila.
Would you rather be on a dating show or survival show?
Survival show.
Microsoft 365 or Google Suites?
Google Suites.
Do you seduce the gatekeeper or do you lie to the gatekeeper to get to the decision maker?
Seduce.
Love it. And you're an introvert, right? Or you're an extrovert sometimes.
Mostly introverted.
I find it so interesting for sales guys who say they're introverts. It's unbelievable. Basketball.
I just want to point out quickly at how fast you are at answering these. I don't think we've got below 4 seconds yet.
I'm an open book. I'll answer anything.
Alex is an analyst, so he's Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks?
Dunkin' Donuts.
Basketball or football?
Football.
Call or email?
Call.
Are you a night owl or an early bird?
Night owl.
So as you grow your brokerage, do you prefer the cradle to grave model or the Chicago backhaul model?
Cradle to grave.
Would you rather be on the carrier side or the customer side?
Carrier.
So thank you for completing the first of 2 games. The second game is called First Thought. First thing that comes to your mind, you have 5 minutes to answer. 5 seconds to answer. As soon as I say the word, first thing that comes to your mind. So motivation.
Daughter.
Favorite food.
Spicy.
Favorite port.
Houston.
What do you want your daughter to become when she grows up?
Freight broker.
Love it. Hey, why would you do that to her? Favorite soda.
Coke.
What do you think about the new NFL kickoff format?
Not a fan.
Chattanooga.
Beautiful.
Leader.
Motivate.
Favorite commodity to ship.
I don't really have one. I guess resin.
There you go, resin. Favorite athlete.
I'm gonna say Kirby Smart. You see him running up and down the sideline. That's an athlete.
Favorite historical figure.
Ben Franklin.
Favorite Thanksgiving dish.
Chicken.
Favorite city.
Chattanooga.
Favorite ethnic food.
I don't have one.
Board game.
You said board game?
Yeah. What comes to your mind when I say board game?
Yahtzee.
That's a fantastic game. It's fantastic. Trump.
President.
Cold call.
Close.
Strong solo.
What's that?
Strong solo. Strong
Lead.
driver.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Strong solo. Can you hear me? Yep.
Leader.
Celebrity crush.
Selena Gomez.
Excellent. Well, hey, thanks for joining us so much. Thank you so much for joining us. I had a quick couple questions on the side. What do you do for work-life balance running a business?
I mean, it's really just try to have fun when you're working. When I'm working, I give 100%. When I'm not at work, give 100%. So, when I'm not at work, I'm giving 100% to my wife and daughter. When I'm at work, I'm giving 100% to Eider.
And what was the weirdest, most creative way that you landed a client or got a load? Or strangest way that you got?
The strangest?
Unexpected.
I met one at a restaurant and closed his business. I went over, shook his hand, gave him my business card, and we landed his business.
What restaurant, if you don't mind me asking?
What restaurant?
Yeah, do you remember?
It's Champy's.
Excellent. And I guess another question I had was, what was the most challenging, rewarding sale? Well, you talked about that, but is there another one that you have made? Like the most rewarding, not, I guess, most creative, but most rewarding. And why was it so rewarding?
There was a small business that we closed here in the North Georgia area. When we first closed them, we had the way that we closed them is we brought some cookies. We went and dropped off some business cards, a little rubber duck, shook their hands. And then we, after we closed them, we took them out to lunch, got to know them. And, they told me, being a small business, they had never had someone or they had never had someone come and meet them face to face. They never had someone dropped off cookies, never been taken out to lunch. And that's something that really resonated with me. And I really, really stood out hearing that testimonial from them.
Man, that's wonderful. You just don't hear that very well. I wish you guys the best of luck. But before you go, what kind of cookies were they? Were they chocolate chip or
they were the little sugar cookies that you get that everyone loves from Walmart.
Oh, that's fantastic. Hunter, a pleasure to get to know you. I wish you guys the best of luck at Eider Logistics, and I think you're going to give CH a run for their money really soon. So
that's the goal.
Have a wonderful evening.
You as well. Thank you.
All right. I am blown away at your memory and your speed at which you were able to answer questions. You've probably been the absolute fastest person that I've ever had to go through rapid fire with. I mean, like I said, you went under 4 seconds, maybe like 4 times out of 50 questions. So.
You got to go through life with the foot on the gas. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, and you didn't let off of it for a second. Calm, clean, concise answers. So I can see how you got this far in your logistics career this fast. You're just on point, man, all the time. Do you ever turn that off when you're outside of work? Do you ever just chill?
Nope. My wife likes to say the second I hit one goal, I've already got my eyes on the next one. So I don't turn it off.
You're a calm guy, but you're like very intense at the same time. You have this like calm intensity about you.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. Well, anyways, man, thank you for coming by, spreading some positivity. We will definitely keep in touch. If you need anything, give me a shout, and I will definitely be checking back in with you. Like I said, summer 2025. I want to see how the Eider journey goes.
I love it. I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me hop on. I appreciate it, Alex.
Yeah, of course. Take it easy, bro.
All right. See ya.
That wraps up podcast episode 50 with Hunter Long, CEO of Eider Logistics. If you need any drayage needs, hit them up. Have a good night, everybody.